Nicholas I was Emperor of Russia, King of Congress Poland, and Grand Duke of Finland from 1825 to 1855. Nicholas I was born at Gatchina Palace in Gatchina, the ninth child of Grand Duke Paul, heir to the Russian throne. 4 months after Nicholas's birth, his grandmother, Catherine the Great, died and his parents became Emperor and Empress of Russia. In 800, at the age of 4 years, Nicholas was named Grand Prior of Russia and entitled to wear the Maltese Cross. Nicholas grew up to be a fine young man. Ryazanovsky says of him that he is the most handsome man in Europe, but also a charmer who enjoyed feminine company and was often at his best with the men. On July 13, 1817, Nicholas I married Princess Charlotte of Prussia, who took the name Alexandra Fyodorovna when she converted to Orthodoxy. Soon Princess Charlotte of Prussia, pregnant with her first child, Alexandra traveled to Moscow where, on April 29, 1818, she gave birth to her first son, the future Tsar Alexander II. The next year, August 18, 1819, in Krasnoye Selo, she had a daughter, Grand Duchess Maria Nikolaevna. By 1832, Nicholas and Alexandra had 7 children whom they raised with care. In 1837, when much of the Winter Palace was destroyed by fire, Nicholas reportedly told an aide-de-camp, "Let everything else burn up, only just save for me the small case of letters in my study which my wife wrote to me when she was my betrothed." After more than 25 years of fidelity, Nicholas took a mistress, Varvara Neladova, one of Alexandra's ladies-in-waiting, after the doctors had forbidden the empress from sexual activity due to her poor health and recurring heart attacks. In the autumn of 1860, her doctors told her that she would not live through the winter if she did not travel once more to the south. She died in her sleep at the age of 62 on November 1, 1860. With 2 older brothers, it initially seemed unlikely Nicholas would ever become Tsar. However, as Alexander and Constantine both failed to produce legitimate sons, Nicholas first came to attention as being likely to rule one day, or at least that his children may succeed. In 1825, when Tsar Alexander died suddenly of typhus, Nicholas was caught between swearing allegiance to Constantine and accepting the throne for himself. The interregnum lasted until Constantine, who was in Warsaw at that time, officially forfeited his right to succession. This had been required by Tsar Alexander as a condition of Constantine's marriage to his second wife Joanna Grudzinska. On 25 December, Nicholas issued the manifesto proclaiming his accession to the throne. That manifesto retroactively named December 1st, the date of Alexander I's death, as the beginning of his reign. During this confusion, a plot was hatched by some members of the military to overthrow Nicholas and seize power. This led to the Decembrist revolt on 26 December 1825, an uprising Nicholas quickly suppressed. The accession of Nicholas I was marred by a demonstration of 3,000 young army officers and other liberal-minded citizens. This demonstration was an attempt to force the government to accept a constitution and a representative form of government. Nicholas ordered the Imperial Russian Army to smash the demonstration. Nicholas appointed Alexander Benkendorf to head this chancellery. Benkendorf employed 300 gendarmes and 16 staff in his office. He began collecting informers and intercepting mail. Soon, the saying that it was impossible to sneeze in one's house before it is reported to the emperor. As an exception to this trend, Finland was able to keep its autonomy partly due to Finnish soldiers' loyal participation in crushing the November uprising in Poland. Russia's first railway was opened in 1825, a 26 kilometers line between St. Petersburg and the suburban residence of Tsarskoye Selo. The second was the St. Petersburg-Moscow Railway, 1855. There were only 920 kilometers of Russian railways. In 1833, Sergei Uvarov of the Ministry of National Education devised a program of orthodoxy, autocracy, and nationality as the guiding principle of the regime. From 1839, Tsar Nicholas also used a former Byzantine Catholic bishop named Joseph Samashko as his agent to reunite Orthodoxy with the Eastern Rite Catholics of Ukraine, Belarus, and Lithuania with the Synod of Polotsk. This caused Tsar Nicholas to be condemned by a succession of Roman pontiffs, the Marquis de Custine, Charles Dickens, and many Western governments. Nicholas disliked serfdom and toyed with the idea of abolishing it in Russia, but declined to do so for reasons of state. He feared the aristocracy and believed they might turn against him if he abolished serfdom. However, he did make some efforts to improve the lot of the crown serfs with the help of his minister Pavel Kiselyov. During most of his reign, he tried to increase his control over the landowners and other influential groups in Russia. In 1831, Nicholas restricted the votes in the noble assembly to those with over 100 serfs, leaving 21,916 voters. In 1841, landless nobles were banned from selling serfs separate from the land. From 1845, attainment of the fifth highest rank in the table of ranks was required to be ennobled. Previously it had been the eighth rank. Nicholas was crowned King of Poland in Warsaw on 12 May 1829, per the Polish constitution that he is the only Russian monarch ever crowned King of Poland. Under Nicholas I, the Jewish agricultural colonization of Ukraine continued with the transfer of Siberian Jews to Ukraine. In Ukraine, Jews were offered the opportunity to buy land, which left very little to support their families. On the other hand, these Jews were exempt from forced military conscription. Under Nicholas I there were attempts to reform the education of Jews with the object of Russification. Study of the Talmud was disfavored. Nicholas I further toughened censorship of Jewish books in Yiddish and Hebrew by allowing these to be printed only in Zhytomyr and Vilna. Nicholas' aggressive foreign policy involved many expensive wars, having a disastrous effect on the empire's finances. Nicholas lavished attention on his very large army. Of a population of 60 to 70 million people, the army counted 1 million men. They had outdated equipment and tactics, but the Tsar, who dressed like a soldier and surrounded himself with officers, gloried in the victory over Napoleon in 1812 and took enormous pride in its smartness on parade. The cavalry horses, for example, were only trained in parade formations and did poorly in battle. The glitter and braid masked profound weaknesses that he did not see. He put generals in charge of most of his civilian agencies regardless of their qualifications. In foreign policy, Nicholas I acted as the protector of ruling legitimism and as guardian against revolution. It has often been noted that such policies were linked with the Metternich counter-revolutionary system through the Austrian ambassador Count Karl Ludwig von Fickelmont. Nicholas's offers to suppress revolution on the European continent, trying to follow the pattern set by his eldest brother, Alexander I, earned him the label of Gendarme of Europe. Immediately on his succession, Nicholas began to limit the liberties that existed under the constitutional monarchy in Congress Poland. Nicholas was outraged when he learned of the Belgian revolt against the Dutch in 1830 and ordered the Imperial Russian army to mobilize. In 1815, Nicholas arrived in France, where he stayed with the Duke of Orleans, Louis Philippe, who soon became one of his best friends, with the Grand Duke being impressed with Duke's personal warmth, intelligence, manners and grace. After the November uprising broke out, in 1831 the Polish parliament deposed Nicholas as King of Poland in response to his repeated curtailment of its constitutional rights. Nicholas reacted by sending Russian troops into Poland and brutally crushed the rebellion. Nicholas then proceeded to abrogate the Polish constitution in virtual entirety and reduced Poland to the status of a province called Vistula land. Soon after, Nicholas embarked on a policy of repressing Polish culture, beginning with suppressing the Polish Catholic Church. In the 1840s, Nicholas reduced 64,000 Polish nobles to commoner status. In 1848, when a series of revolutions convulsed Europe, Nicholas was at the forefront of reactionism. In 1849, he helped the Habsburgs to suppress the revolution in Hungary, and he also urged Prussia not to adopt a liberal constitution. While Nicholas was attempting to maintain the status quo in Europe, he followed a somewhat more aggressive policy toward the neighboring empires to the south, the Ottoman Empire and Persia. Nicholas was widely believed at the time to be following the traditional Russian policy of resolving the so-called Eastern question by seeking to partition the Ottoman Empire and establish a protectorate over the Orthodox population of the Balkans, still largely under Ottoman control in the 1820s. In 1826–28, Nicholas fought the Russo-Persian War, which ended with Persia forced to cede its last remaining territories in the Caucasus. Russia had conquered all the territories of Iran in both the North Caucasus and South Caucasus, comprising modern-day Georgia, Dagestan, Armenia, and Azerbaijan. Through the course of the 19th century, Russia fought a successful war against the Ottomans but it did little to increase Russian power in Europe. Only a small Greek state became independent in the Balkans, with limited Russian influence. Austria offered the Ottomans diplomatic support, and Prussia remained neutral, thus leaving Russia without any allies on the continent. The European allies landed in Crimea and laid siege to the well-fortified Russian Sevastopol naval base. The Russians lost battles at Alma in September 1854 and then at Inkerman. After the prolonged siege of Sevastopol, the base fell, exposing Russia's inability to defend a major fortification on its own soil. On the death of Nicholas I, Alexander II became emperor. On January 15, 1856, the new emperor took Russia out of the war on very unfavorable terms, which included the loss of a naval fleet on the Black Sea. Nicholas died on March 2, 1855, during the Crimean War, at the Winter Palace in St. Petersburg. He caught a chill, refused medical treatment and died of pneumonia, although there were rumors he was committing a passive suicide by refusing treatment. He was buried in the Peter and Paul Cathedral in St. Petersburg. He reigned for 30 years, and was succeeded by his son Alexander II. Legacy? Nicholas I's legacy is primarily that of a reactionary autocrat who ruled Russia with an iron fist, suppressing dissent, expanding the empire, and ultimately leading to the disastrous Crimean War. Number 1 is Nicholas I was a staunch believer in autocracy and the divine right of kings, viewing himself as a protector of the existing social order and a defender against revolutionary ideas. Number 2 is he harshly repressed any form of opposition, including the Decembrist Revolt of 1825, and established a powerful secret police force. Number 3 is his reign saw continued territorial expansion of the Russian Empire, along with a drive to centralize administrative power. Number 4 is Nicholas I was a key player in European politics, often acting as a defender of the status quo and a suppressor of revolutionary movements, earning him the nickname, the Gendarme of Europe. Number 5 is his aggressive foreign policy and refusal to compromise led to the Crimean War, a disastrous conflict that exposed the weaknesses of the Russian military and economy. Number 6 is despite some attempts at modernization, Nicholas I's reign was marked by economic stagnation and persistent social problems, including the continuation of serfdom. Number 7 is Nicholas I was known for his military background, his meticulous attention to detail, and his strong sense of duty. Number 8 is his reign saw the rise of the slogan orthodoxy, autocracy, and nationality, which became a defining ideology of the Russian Empire. Number 9 is his legacy is one of repression, conservatism, and a failure to adapt to the changing world, ultimately contributing to the instability that led to the revolutions of 1905 and 1917. I hope you liked the video, so please like, share and subscribe my channel and press the bell icon to get new videos.